Welcome back to another episode of The Founder, a show that features entrepreneurs and their early stories of ingenuity, struggle, and perseverance to get their companies off the ground. We do our best to capture the uncensored, uncovered look behind the curtain into what founders really face when getting started. I'm your host, Kallaway. My guest today is a former designer that worked at places like Formlabs and Patagonia before heading to grad school at MIT. She enrolled in a special dual degree program that enabled her to get degrees in both product engineering and business. During her first year in school, she started to experience some autoimmune issues that led her to keep a detailed skin diary to try to diagnose the problem. It got her thinking, why isn't there a better way to figure out what's wrong with my skin? When she combined her design background with the AI and machine learning capabilities she was learning at MIT, Atolla was born. At Atolla, this founder and her team are building a data-first skincare company. When you sign up as a new customer, you complete an intake questionnaire about your diet, environment, lifestyle, and current routine. Based on information about people who are similar to you, Atolla's predictive model creates your first month's serum. Every month after, you complete an at-home skin test that measures your oil, moisture, and pH levels to further refine your custom formula. This is to help the serum proactively change as your skin does throughout the year and avoid things like your skin getting drier in the winter. Their algorithms are also able to tell you which of the other products you currently use work well together, as well as which ones don't, so you can switch up your routine to get the healthiest skin possible. As a special offer just for our listeners, the team at Atolla has provided a discount code good for 15% off your first month's serum. Use code FOUNDER at checkout to take advantage of this special offer. Without further ado, the co-founder of Atolla, Meg Maupin. Let's get it. Meg, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is really exciting.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. Before we dive into the origin story and kind of build up from the genesis of the idea, it'd be awesome if you could provide like an anchor point of where Atolla is today, kind of mission, vision, size, products you offer, just to give people kind of a flavor of what it looks like today.
Cool. Yeah, happy to do that. So Atolla is a company that creates custom skincare based on an at-home skin analysis. So we have actually been building the technology for our product for about 2 years. Started at MIT, but our company didn't launch until about 7 months ago. So we've only been in market for 7 months. The way that our first product works is that it's a monthly subscription for a custom serum. So you sign up, you do this skin analysis kit that measures your oil, moisture, pH, your preferences, combines that with data about your environment, lifestyle, diet, routine, other products that you use. We create a custom serum that gets shipped to you, and then each month you redo the test, and we continue to tweak and analyze how well that serum is working for you. So it's been a pretty exciting 7 months. We've been growing a lot, especially over the last few months. We've been doubling in size, both in terms of customers and revenue, and have some pretty big goals for this year around, getting our customer database to close to, 20,000 people, which helps us a lot with some of the machine learning we're trying to do around people's skin types, and also launch new products like moisturizer and cleanser.
That's great. Yeah, I can't wait to get into kind of the product development. How does the test work? Is it like a strip that you put on your skin for, walk us through how the test works?
Yeah, so the test is pretty cool. I mean, we spent a long time developing it. And so the goals when we were thinking about how to create a amazing user experience was A, make it easy to use but still accurate. B, make it price accessible. And C, make sure that nobody had to send anything back like to a lab, that it could all be done at home. So what we developed was a way for us to accurately read your skin's oil, moisture, and pH using paper-based testing tools. So the way that that works is that they come in a little packet that we ship to you, your skin health kit. They're reactive paper. So you hold up the strip to your forehead for about 10 to 15 seconds and it changes color. And you take a photo of it and you upload it to our web app. There's nothing to send back. It gives you an instantaneous read. And then you do the same thing for your cheek, both for oil and moisture. Test your skin pH. And then we send little tiny vials that measure preference because we realized it's really important in the customization process to understand what people like. And that becomes part of the process as well.
That's so cool. I want to take it back to the beginning. So walk us through your life and kind of professional background up through college. What were you working on before you started Atolla?
Yeah, so my background is in design, specifically in mass customization, but slightly different industry. So before MIT, I was working at Formlabs, which is a startup that makes 3D printers and 3D printing materials. I was there as an early employee, and I think it was really inspiring to me to see them build a company and go from 30 people when I joined to over 300 when I left for grad school. I was really interested in learning more about the business side. As I mentioned, my background's design, so I knew a lot about designing products, doing creative for marketing. But I wanted to understand how do you take an idea from just a design into manufacturing and like building a business, having like a business model. And so I found this really amazing program at MIT called Integrated Design and Management, which was like the perfect grad school program for me because it combined design and engineering with business and is very focused on entrepreneurship. So I ended up getting a dual degree in both product engineering and business from MIT through that program.
And then I want to shift a little bit to kind of where this idea came from, right? So you're in MIT, you're working on probably a variety of different projects in different classes. Did this come out of a class project, or was it something on the side, you had an idea for and then pursued? Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so the idea for Atolla came from an experience I had during my first year of grad school at MIT. So obviously, grad school is really stressful, especially if you're getting a dual degree, and it's a place like MIT. And I started experiencing a lot of like skin issues and also like digestive and like food allergies as well as skin allergies that I never had before in my life. So it was like one day I woke up and I had just like epic rash on my forehead and I was like, what happened? Like I'm not doing anything different in my routine. Yeah, I'm a little more stressed out, but I started having these autoimmune issues and I wanted to figure out like what was I allergic to. So I started keeping a skin diary like this is what I ate, this is the products I use, this is my routine. Like what is it that's causing this reaction? And I had a really hard time even though I was writing down in such like excruciating detail trying to figure out what it was. And it sort of clicked since I was at MIT and I was learning a lot about AI and ML and thinking about, new kinds of user experience. Like, why is it so hard for me to figure out what it is? And I realized that skincare is one of the industries where it's just acceptable to like buy something and it doesn't work and throw it away and you threw away like $100, in the garbage without using it. And I was like, that's messed up. So I started talking to people about it and through sharing my experience and kind of thinking about how could I leverage my background in mass customization to think about an experience that helped me get the answers I was looking for about my skin, as well as like the right products. I met my co-founder Sid, who's a data scientist. He had a similar problem. He has eczema, so he can't just go to the store and buy a product. He doesn't know if it's going to cause the skin to react badly either. So together we had the idea. We worked on it in classes at MIT, but it started originally like outside of class. Just like why is this personal problem that we both have so hard to figure out?
Yeah. When you first started like the research phase of trying to understand the industry, was it a combination of like, okay, let's do secondary research, how big is the market, let's try to size the opportunity, as well as talking to people who are truly experiencing these problems and combining? Or did you kind of lean one way or the other when you tried to validate if this was an opportunity? Or was it more just like you guys wanted a solution, you were going to solve it for yourself first?
First started as a solution that we wanted to solve for ourselves. And a lot of the early research we were doing just to solve it for ourselves eventually became my thesis. So I wrote my thesis at MIT about the social and environmental impacts of the skincare industry. And the research I was doing was actually to answer the question of why is this a problem? Like, why is it so hard? Why do people buy things and throw them away because they don't work? And how could you increase the likelihood of success? And I tied that to sustainability research, like with the thesis essentially that a data driven approach could ultimately lead to better, more effective results and less waste. So I was doing a lot of interviewing people about their skincare routines. Like I honestly went to people's houses and opened up their like graveyard of products and being like, how many things do you actually use? Like, does this one work? Like, how do you know? And so we started a lot with just our own personal experiences and research just with our friends or broader community. Um, Soon after Sid and I started, we met our third co-founder, Dr. Ranella Hirsch, who's an amazing dermatologist, and she helped us with a lot of the science to take it to the next level. So like after we had done this research answering like why is it so hard and realized like the answer to that is because people don't understand their skin, so they don't know how to choose the right ingredients at the right time. Skin's always changing. The next level was like understanding skin science better, so we could start building like the data models, which is where Ranella came in initially as an advisor, and then she eventually became a co-founder. And together with her, we started doing more broader research. But I honestly think that we first thought about the models and were motivated to solve our own personal problems about skin before we realized how many other people had the same problem and the larger opportunity. We first did the tech.
So you're essentially like a skin scientist, I would say. Like your whole team, you're experts in skin. I know, little about the space. Were there trends or themes that were emerging for like why people's skin breaks out or why they have bad skin?
Not necessarily. I think the theme there is it's personal and there's
Yeah,
so many factors
there
that
is
it
no
could be,
trend.
which is why yeah, the trend is that there is no trend. I think there's some really interesting early indications from our data about that lifestyle and geography can play a greater role than genetics in determining how healthy someone's skin is. So for example, we've like been studying people in the same family, like a aunt and her sister and a niece and people in the same immediate family, and two people like aunt and a niece could be more similar if they have the same lifestyle, like they're out in the sun, they're at the beach all the time, they smoke, versus two sisters who share more of the same genetics. And so that is actually a big theme that comes up a lot for us, seeing trends by geography, and those trends are actually more similar for people than even like ethnicity, for example, like people of the same ethnicity having the same skin issues. It's more environment and lifestyle stuff.
That's really interesting. Did you find anything out other than like to use Atolla products, which definitely we're plugging? Like, what's the optimal amount of times you should wash your face? Should you wear products to bed? Right? Should you use them day and night? Should you like? Are there any themes around, traditional skincare routines that you guys found out?
Yeah, so I think what we found from our research is that for our customer segment, which is mostly women between like 25 and 45 years of age, they're using like 8 to 10 products. So there was something that happened in the skincare slash beauty industry in the last 5 to 10 years, which is K beauty really took over and the 12-step routine, which is the opposite of what most dermatologists recommend, which is like keep it simple. So what happened is K Beauty originally intended for people to use 12 products from the same line, and people took it upon themselves to choose 10 to 12 products from different lines with ingredients that don't work well together. So most people's routines are made up of products and like actives that actually don't work well together, either that they're not very effective or they're too harsh on their skin, which is making their issue worse. So, a huge part actually of what our algorithms do now is help people manage their entire routine and look for interaction conflicts, even with products that are non Atolla. You have to input all the other products in your routine, and we can say, hey, use this in the morning and this at night because you shouldn't use them together and things like that. And I think that's what most people are doing wrong. It's not even that there aren't good products out there, it's like putting it all together and making sure you're using things at the right time for your skin because your skin's also always changing based on your environment and hormones, etc.
Yeah. So I want to shift to kind of like product prototyping. So it's really interesting because when I was doing, research on you guys had several things you were trying to solve at once, right? The test, which is complex science, the serum, which I bet like the formulation is difficult and the way you customize it, and then your interactive platform with the app. Talk about each one of those and kind of how they layered on, like which problem did you solve first and how you went about creating initial prototypes for those.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's been pretty complex what we've done. As you were saying, we basically have different aspects of our product that's both digital and physical and custom on top of that.
Yeah.
So the thing that we focused on first is the connection between someone's skin and what ingredients they should use. And so for that, that's where our kind of like initial patent came in, which is like, how do we understand someone's skin with real data? And so we knew that we couldn't rely on quiz data because, again, people didn't know how to answer, like, is your skin dry or oily? It's not very precise either. That we had to measure skin somehow, that we had to take these measurements that were very precise and connect them to ingredients and amounts of ingredients. And so as we were thinking about making these connections and basically setting it up like a measurable scientific experiment, we realized that the hardest thing about what we were proposing was that we don't know what ingredients are in other products. Like, we don't know exactly how much of active ingredients are in something you buy from a drugstore from a different brand. And so it's really impossible to measure because those have like 40 different ingredients in them. So, in order to set up the experiment that we could learn the most, we had to manufacture our own products. Like, we have to control every aspect of the supply chain in order to say this ingredient at 2% is doing this. So, we have to measure it end to end. Someone's like before condition, which we do through the skin test, they're like using the product and what's in it and controlling for all the other variables, which is why we ask about the other products in their routine and so much about their like health and lifestyle. And then we have to measure after, which is why people take the test month over month so we can see the trends on how things are changing. So we designed the system first and we had to figure out a way to test it because nothing, any part of what we were doing didn't really exist before. So the first thing that we tested was understanding if people would even want a custom product based on a skin analysis. That's what we had to validate. Like, can we set this up as a product business or do we have to think about a way to make it B2B? But doing it direct to consumer made so much more sense to build the relationship where the value for the customer of giving us data about their skin is a better product. And the feedback loop is just so inherent in that. So what we did was we did a bunch of pop-ups and we approximated the experience without having developed the skin analysis kit or the serums yet. Basically, after working on the algorithms for 6 months, Sid and I did MIT's accelerator that was in New York City called Delta V. And the whole point of the summer was to test an in person experience to see, do people want a custom serum based on their skin data? We took equipment from Ranella's dermatology office to test on people's skin. So no one would have been able to do it at home, but we just wanted to validate in the pop-up that we could get precise measurements
Yeah.
that would lead to the serum. Serums are really complex to formulate, so we didn't have serums at that time, but what we were doing was making custom facial oils, which are easy to mix and have like less complex formulation rules. So the experience for the customer was you make an appointment, you go to the Atolla Skin Lab, you fill out like a intake questionnaire about the health questions and all the other products in your routine. We take a normal and a UV photo of you to look at sun damage. And then we use this like fancy dermatology equipment to take oil, moisture, pH, and elasticity measurements.
Okay.
Then you choose a base texture, and then we formulated a custom facial oil on the spot. And it was really important that we also charged for that because, as I'm sure from a lot of other people you've talked to, it's not enough to just validate an idea. People have to be willing to pay for it. So we charged, and we also were testing, do people want a 3 month supply or 1 month supply? So that was another variable.
So the serum that they get, is it just one, like custom formulated for them, but is it just one they use daily or is it a set of different, different products?
No, right now it's just a serum. And the reason we started with just one is because from user behavior perspective, it's a lot easier if you're a new brand to have people add on a product into their existing routine. And what our value proposition is, hey, we're making a custom serum that will address your skin issue like breakouts or redness or fine lines and wrinkles. And you don't have to change anything about what you're doing. You just add ours and we formulate it to fit with everything else. And we build trust with the user that way. And it's a lot easier than trying to sell them a whole bunch of products from a brand they've never heard of. You build trust by solving their skin issue. And then our plan is to launch moisturizer and cleanser as an add-on, essentially.
That's really smart. So what did you learn from those in-person pop-ups? I know it's like about $20 a month right now, but what did you charge in those in-person pop-ups?
Yeah, so it's $45 a month. We do some like discounting for the first month to get people in the door. What
Gotcha.
we were charging was around the same for the pop-up, but I think the most important thing was that we had 85% conversion to purchase, which is
Wow.
crazy in retail.
That is
It's
crazy.
like 85% of people who came in and got a free skin analysis walked away with a custom product. So there was huge interest there. And people really liked the approach of like using actual data. And people were interested in learning about their skin in addition to getting a custom product. So they liked all the tracking and the data that we gave them about their skin report. Another important thing that we learned that played into the development of the at-home skin analysis kit was how important preference is. Because if you think about it, when you usually buy skincare products, most people are going into a store and like trying it on their hands or and the experience of using it and the texture plays a huge role if someone likes it on the first impression. Even if scientifically it's like a good match for you, if you don't like it, you won't use it, in which case it does zero things for you.
Right.
So we realized that like we had to include a preference test as part of the at-home skin analysis, and that was like a huge unlock for us because we hadn't thought about that previously. So what we did from there after the success of our first pop-up was we figured out how do we make this as accessible as possible that people can do at home and in a way that's pretty cost effective and not have to send anything back. Again, we wanted to test that assumption because we knew that it worked well as a retail experience, but we didn't know if people would want to do an at-home skin analysis kit. And then we did a Kickstarter before we developed it even further.
Yeah, I feel like you're going through the steps very like methodically, which makes a lot of sense.
Yes, we're all scientists.
Yeah, exactly. What's interesting is, are you one of the first ones ever to do like a consistent testing, like month to month? Because every other product I've ever seen where it does like a custom test, it's just the one time up front, right? And then they create the recommendation and you do it until you don't. Were you one of the first ones to pioneer this like, continuous testing process?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're the first ones to do it in skincare. Definitely the at-home skin test. Not sure about other beauty categories, but I think it's because the goal and the mission of our company is to help people become smarter about their skin and to prevent and treat skin issues. And a huge part of that is actually building the data model, which is why I said like at first we were thinking like, is this like a B2B product? And so the goal has always been to have enough data to help people prevent their skin issues or even predict them before they even have issues. And so to do that, we need to have a longitudinal view of people's skin and have the efficacy database, which does not exist because you're right. Like brands just sell something to you one time and then they're like, okay, bye. But skin is also so important because it's our largest organ and it's always changing. Like everyone has experienced like having dry skin in the winter and then your skin becomes totally different in the summer. So you shouldn't use the same products. It doesn't even make sense to think of it the same way. I think actually the adaptation and the innovation in what we're doing is more around the feedback loop than even necessarily the one-time customization. Like the customization is actually the way that we measure how well something is working so we can adapt it. But adaptive is more the cooler thing what we're doing.
Yeah. And are you showing, so people who've been with you, I know it's only been 7 months, but as you get to 12, 24 months, you plan on showing people how that data, how their skin changes over time and say like, okay, look, like last winter, your skin got a little drier in like September, October, November. So we should like, up the proportion of whatever the active ingredient is to treat that piece.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. So essentially, when you go through the skin analysis process, you not only generate a serum, but you have an entire dashboard of your measurements that save. And then month over month, we're tracking different measurements and also seeing trends and patterns there. So you can not only see how your like oil, moisture, pH, and things like that are changing, we also track a visual progress, which has been huge because people don't remember what they looked like several months ago. And to see side by side and correlate the photo with their other measurements is really helpful. It's about like triangulating all the data points, which is why we never wanted to do only a quiz. We wanted as much different types of data as possible.
Yeah. And this may be a weird question, but is there a good versus bad, like ideal skin complexion in terms of like, someone might be more comfortable with a more like oily to dry percentage, just the way it feels. Is there like an industry standard for what to achieve, or is it on a personal basis?
I would say there's more ranges. So all the visualizations we have for people are not like you have the perfect skin score, but like your scores are in the healthy ranges. So for pH, that's usually between 4.5 to 6. For oil and moisture, there are different ranges too. And it also depends on what time of year it is. The other complex thing about what we're doing is like everything's relative. So like we have overall trends. We can compare you to other people who are similar to you, and then we can compare you to yourself. And so sometimes there are things that are fall in the normal range for everyone, but would be like weird if your skin was like that. So that's why we have to look at individual and aggregate data.
Gotcha. Yeah, I love that. The data-driven approach makes a ton of sense. When you shifted from the retail, you had 85% adoption to paying product, purchase, which was incredible. When you shifted immediately to the online model, what did that adoption look like, and what were some of the tactics you did to get those paying customers digitally early on?
Yeah, when we first launched, we actually had a different model than we have today. When we first launched, what we had was, I think, what you were referring to, which is the first purchase is $20, but you're buying only the skin analysis kit. After you do the skin analysis kit, then you become a subscriber and get a serum. What happened there was that a lot of people bought kits and then it took them a really long time to do it, or sometimes they forgot. Um, and that's not great for our business model because, as we've been talking about, it's all set up on this like long term relationship with people and like the feedback over time. So to have people have the kits and not do them, we're like, well, that kind of sucks. And I think it's a hard thing because we're asking people to do a new behavior. Like, I'm not surprised if you only pay $20 for a kit, you're like, I don't have time. It was only $20. So we made a shift several months in, which is we have people prepay for their serum. So they're paying for their first month. We ship them the kit, they do the kit, and then they see the serum. And that, like, pretty much at least 90% of people are actually becoming subscribers after that because we're essentially motivating them to do the kit and we're getting more motivated people. So that was a big learning for us because I think we can revisit selling the kits again, but I think it will have to be in retail. I don't think it works online because there's too much drop off, especially at the price point because it's not super high.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, did you guys consider, and this may be tough from an infrastructure perspective to set up early on, but like with like a Walmart or a CVS or some standalone location where someone would go, they would still do the really simplified test that you guys designed. It takes them 5 minutes and then be done with it. Because when people get the test at their house, there's so much going on, right? But if they went to a dedicated place to just take that test quickly and then you start this cycle, did you guys think about something like that or?
Yeah, I mean, we've thought about it for a while considering how successful our own pop-ups were. We had plans to do a lot of retail this year before COVID-19.
Yeah.
We were just about to launch a spa channel. So we had announced it and done a press preview day, and it's working exactly like how you're describing, but it's a spa, which is very targeted. It's the same audience as Atolla, people who have skin issues who want to get a treatment. So the way that the spa was going to work is that people would sign up for a data-driven facial and product. So they'd come in, we train the estheticians on how to help people do the Atolla skin analysis, which is a value add for them because then they have more data about the person's skin that they're going to treat. So you do the Atolla analysis before the facial. You get a facial based on what the analysis was. And then you walk out the door, an Atolla subscriber. You've already done the onboarding, and we ship you the serum directly to your house.
So once COVID's over, I'm sure that'll be a huge accelerant for you guys.
Yeah, I think it will be great because the skin test is so engaging that it's actually a great acquisition tool for us, but it only really works well in person. So the other thing we had a lot of success doing was giving out kits for free at offices where our customer works, like Rent the Runway, for example. Like a lot of girls who work there are our target customer. They already have the kit in hand. The cost to us is less expensive than getting them on Facebook or Instagram. It's just the cost of the kit. And then they go and then become a subscriber.
Yeah, that's smart. I was going to ask from like a marketing perspective, 25 to 45-year-old women's right in that Instagram, Facebook demographic. Are those some of your key channels to get new customers, or what else are you looking at?
So I'm glad you asked this question because we've had so many learnings over the last few months. And I think the biggest one is that user generated content is key for us. And the greatest challenge we've had being the first people in our category is explaining what is the skin health kit. People are like, what is that? They only really know quizzes in their mind, or they think like it's really complicated, like a blood test, and I have to send it back, which is
Yeah,
not.
like what is that? I don't want to do it.
So having videos where people in 30 to 60 seconds are doing the experience. People see the like instant result and upload in their serum and how their like serum ingredients relate to the measurements. We were like, "Oh my god, I get it. That's so cool." So our largest and growing platform right now is actually TikTok because of the video format. And then we repurpose the TikTok videos into paid ads on Facebook and Instagram. And those TikTok videos with the UGC perform way better than things we've done that are like so studio and so branded. Just because it's real and people are seeing like real people's experience doing the kit. They're like essentially getting educated about how our process works. And by the time they get to our website, they have a higher intent to purchase. So it's really like helped our website conversion rate. Whereas before we were trying to explain it and it doesn't make as much sense with just like photos and words, especially if it's something that no one's ever done before.
Right. So are these TikTok users? It's just like everyday. Like, how are you convincing an everyday person who just buys this to do it, or is it like TikTok influencers that you're partnering with?
It's kind of both. So, TikTok success was a bit accidental for us at first. So, one of our users, who's also a model, posted a video on TikTok and then it went viral and it got over a million views and it led to a ton of sales. And we're like, oh my God, that was crazy.
Yeah, let's do
What
it
can we
again.
learn from this? And so we realized from that video, and what we started testing was like that there's a storytelling format that works really well. And it's about showing people how the test works and relating it to the results and hitting some like points about our ingredient standards. Um, so we had kind of this format and then we started engaging with influencers, but not really paid. We just gave them product. And I think that they saw that it was cool content that their users would or their followers would be interested in. And they started posting. And then the other thing that we did at the beginning of COVID-19 is that we knew that a lot of people who were our customers had lost their jobs. And so we knew that UGC also worked really well for us. So we started putting out calls to pay people like a few $100 for like videos or photos that we could then use. So yeah, I think it's been a combination of both of those things. I think we're going to continue to scale up influencer. And I think like right now, giving people a free product first so that they can go through the experience has been like really helpful strategy.
Yeah. Anything you tried, and I know it's still early, but anything you tried that didn't work, like from a marketing or customer acquisition perspective, and you're like, yeah, that's not going to work for us.
I mean, I think email is a channel that is really interesting for us because we were surprised to find out that most customers are making an immediate purchase right after they see like our ads or like a TikTok video. And so we initially thought that because of what we knew about it being sort of a more multi-touch point like user journey that we would have to send like people a bajillion emails and like we essentially were over educating people. We gave them too much information before their first purchase, trying to explain how it worked, that they were just like, what? As opposed to only sending like one or two, like really simplified emails worked so much better. And I thought that was really interesting because like we just didn't expect that. We were like, man, we're just gonna have to send them like these like education emails that describes all these different aspects. And it's like we learned kind of the value proposition hierarchy and got a lot smarter on that so we could simplify our messaging. So that was some like really important learning for us is like what are like the top 3 things people need to know about our product in order to like sign up and try it the first time.
So one idea I had, and you can definitely ignore it if you think it's bad, but I see all these YouTube videos with chiropractors where they're doing like the assessment on it's mostly for ASMR, like with the cracking, but something that could be cool is once you open the spa channel to like almost create like a 5-minute case study video where the person's coming in, you're like filming them getting the test, and then they come in 30 days later or 60 days later, and you can show it before and after. That would be really cool because I was looking
Yeah.
on YouTube and I didn't see a ton of like user generated YouTube videos.
Yeah, I think YouTube's definitely like the next channel for us to explore with the success of TikTok. These like, what's the difference between like a shorter format video and like a longer format video? And I think the idea of showing before and after is really interesting because we have some amazing before and after stories. Another thing we started doing too was changing the way we did reviews and testimonials. We launched a new campaign called Skin Stories, where every other week we have our users write a blog post in their own voice. So instead of like getting a pull quote like Atolla is awesome, we have them talk about their entire like skin history and journey, like starting when they were teenagers and their skin was oily and they thought they had this type of skin, to like what are all the things they tried? What do they use now besides Atolla? Like how has their progress been? And that's been really engaging because I think again it's just more real and it's more meaningful for people, because I think the purpose of that would be for someone to come to our website and be like, I can relate to that person and like what they're going through.
That's really cool. I wanna shift to a little bit to like kind of product iteration. So you mentioned you're working on other, so you have the serum, you're working on the cleanser, you're working on the moisturizer. Is most of your focus for product iteration those, physical like the actual skincare products, or are you spending just as much effort and time on iterating the algorithms, iterating the skin test, all the marketing piece? Talk about product iteration a little bit.
Yeah, it's both physical product and digital. So, essentially, what we're doing is that we use all the data we're collecting about people's skin and their other favorite products in our product to improve and like create new products. So, when we're talking about doing moisturizer and cleanser, the way that we're developing those iterations of products is we're looking at all of the data and we're like, what are people's pH ranges? What are the other products that they're doing? And then we're coming up with all the ways that we're going to do the customization and like combine these different things. But we're basing all of it on customer data. And it's very different than how a traditional CPG like a L'Oreal does product development, because essentially they're doing the opposite of what we're doing, which is like we're doing it from the ground up. Like, what is the data telling us to build and design? And they're usually designing a product, often for like, what are they going to do for that season? And then testing it on a like group of like 30 representative sample to see who it works for. So it's pretty interesting. And it's a lot different than how it traditionally works in the industry. And even with serums, like we're coming out with new serum ingredients based on what we're learning about our customers. So we're going to launch retinol and peptides, because that's a need for some of our customers, especially the older ones. So we're continuing to like refine and iterate even on our existing products. And on the digital side, what we're aiming to do is use the power of this data to make the user experience easier and also help people receive more education about their skin. So, what we can do is essentially use all the data to try to predict certain things about their skin, and what they're going to need. And I think the goal over time would also be to cut back on how much skin testing we're asking people to do. Because at a certain point, with enough people and enough data, again, we can like predict what their skin's going to need and make it easier, from a user experience standpoint. So, we're always thinking about things like that too. Like, how can we be as accurate as possible, but also make our product really accessible, and always both like the serum and making that easy to use and fit into their routine, and our web app. How can we make that as like simple and easy as possible, but still give people the information that they want to know about their skin?
Yeah. So your answer segues well into like the competitive landscape. So I'm curious how you guys think about it. Are the L'Oreals and the Estee Lauder, are those companies on your radar for a direct competitor? Are there other kind of players in the startup landscape that are coming at this? What's the competitive landscape look like?
Yeah, I think I would break it down into like larger CPG players, and some of them are doing their own personalized offerings, mostly through a quiz and putting together a routine for people. So not necessarily building it from the actual product itself, like what we're doing, where like the formula is custom, but they're really like putting together different things in their line and giving it to the customer. And they're kind of limited to doing that because they are limited by their like manufacturing and distribution, where they're set up to make 100,000 things of one SKU and not work in the same way that you have to work to make like someone a different product every single month. It's completely different. There are other personalized competitors as well. Pretty much all of them are quiz-based personalization, and I think that again they probably have a different goal than us, where our goal is more like we're more set up like a data science company who makes skincare products, and we need this like whole feedback loop and to continue to like change the product to measure what's going to happen. A lot of times they're doing like one-time personalization, or they're not capturing like the other data that we're collecting. And a lot of them that I've seen have a really high price point. And price point is a really important thing for us because we want to make our product accessible, as I said. And the other thing that goes along with accessibility is meaning that you don't only have like rich white people in like San Francisco and New York using your product if it costs
Yeah.
like $200. Like you need that like diversity of people and data and stuff too. And then I would say there are approaches that are more scientific, like ours, and more measured, but a lot of times they're prescription, which we're not. So there are a lot of ones that are more like teledermatology, um, or other types of analysis in person. But again, that's also targeting someone with like a very extreme skin issue. And our customers kind of in the middle, like they have an acute, persistent issue they're trying to solve, and they've had a hard time solving it for themselves, but they don't necessarily need something as strong as a prescription.
Where do you see the industry going? My hypothesis is that I think you're spot on in that people want more personalized things. The delivery mechanism for factories to build personalized things isn't always there for these big brands, and I think you hit it on the head. You guys are agile and able to do that in this space. What other kind of themes do you see emerging in the skincare and like broader health and wellness industry?
I think we're coming up to a reckoning between clean beauty, which has been a really big topic in the last few years, and the idea of safety and like using chemicals or clean chemicals. I think COVID has also kind of come made us talk about that more, and I think it will continue to be a topic in the future because clean beauty, the goal is awesome, which is to like have people use formulations that are safe for them. But a lot of times there's talk about like chemicals being bad or like chemical free, but like water is a chemical, and like there's a lot of like bad education around that. And chemicals aren't necessarily bad. And so I think that there's going to be like some sort of reckoning between like chemicals and like green or clean beauty, for this kind of new category, which is I think kind of where we sit, which is like what is safe and effective for this individual person and at the dosage that's safe for them. Obviously, we don't want to include things that are like unsafe ingredients, but like some of the effectiveness and efficacy is also like on an individual basis. So I think that that's coming. I also think personalization will be a growing trend, and I think that brands have to think about it as two-way personalization, similar to what I've been talking to you about, which is personalizing the product itself, but also helping people put together their entire routine. Because if the rest of the routine isn't accounted for or wrong, it like then the product cannot work as well. So I think that that has to be part of the personalization conversation as well. And it also needs to be tied up with some of the things around sustainability. Because as I mentioned, like my hypothesis is taking a data driven approach could actually reduce waste. Like ultimately, people could buy less products, but the ones that are right for them. But I think more and more that's a conversation that people are like realizing how wasteful it is to not go through products, and people like celebrating the ones that they empty, choosing brands that have like sustainable packaging or have like some sort of like environmental mission. So I think that like yeah, those three trends are going to continue into the future, like the personalization, like green or clean chemicals, and also sustainability, both in terms of packaging and the products themselves.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of those. I want to shift to funding. So what's been really popular on this show so far is when entrepreneurs, walk through their funding journey a bit and most importantly emphasize lessons learned, right? What were some things when you were sitting in different pitch meetings that you took away, good ones, bad ones? What would you share if there were other prospective entrepreneurs listening?
Yeah, so I'll kind of start from the beginning of our fundraising journey, which is that we built all of our prototypes without really raising any money. So like all throughout MIT, we got a couple grants, wasn't that much money. Got a little from an accelerator. That was awesome because they didn't take any equity like some of the other accelerator programs. Um, Raised maybe 100K max, friends and family to do our pop-up because we knew we wanted to have the different proof points in order to like raise money from like a VC. And even though we didn't have all of the product built, like we didn't have the skin analysis kit fully built, we didn't have all the serum different custom combinations built, we wanted to prove that people were willing to pay and that we could demonstrate that with as much data as possible, which is why we did the pop-up, and then we did the Kickstarter. We didn't even do the Kickstarter to raise money. It was mostly a marketing test, like, who would buy this online? Like, who are these people who will buy it online? And, like, are they willing to sign up for, like, multiple months? And, like, what are they most interested in? That it was another kind of, like, data points for us. After we did Kickstarter, the fall of 2018, we started fundraising with the intention of mostly doing angel investors, but might potentially do a VC if we met someone who was the right fit. We started at the worst time. Like, I do not recommend that anyone starts fundraising around the holidays, like in November and December. In school, especially if you do anything in entrepreneurship, they always talk about fundraising as something that like successful people do in like 1 month, and like that VC money and your valuation, like that's the only way to like get money. And there's a whole like myth around like being a successful entrepreneur based on like what your fundraising numbers are.
Yeah,
And
totally.
so I think there's like a pressure too to like you're like, "Oh, I gotta get this like fundraise done in like 1 month." And that's just like unrealistic, especially when you're first starting off or it's around the holidays. Like, first you have to figure out who you're even targeting. So like a huge thing that we did wrong when we first started raising was we kind of let fundraising happen to us because at MIT, and we were like, oh, like MIT will be so helpful in getting intros via MIT. That's like great credibility for us. We were talking to the wrong people always. It was always like Series A investors. It was like we were trying to raise less than $1 million. They're like, our minimum check size is $2 million,
Yeah, just the
and
wrong
we
fit.
wasted so much time just like taking all these meetings, and we're like, this is not going anywhere. Like we're just like not raising this round in the right way. So how can we take more control over the situation? And so what we did was we wrote a list of people we wanted to get introduced to. We're like, okay, what are the funds and what are the who are the angels that could actually help us? And like what could they bring to the table? Because we have a very like unique business. We need people who understand like beauty industry and wellness. We also need people who understand like applied AI and ML and the
Yeah, and the
data play
data.
that we're trying to do. And then we could also use some people who are just like operators who've like done this before. And we spent like at least a week like researching. And like I honestly did stuff like LinkedIn stalked people I knew or other founders and see who they knew. And then I would send them my deck and I would be like, could you introduce me to these three people that I saw that you knew on LinkedIn? It was way more targeted, but we still got the warm intros, and it was so much more successful with having the right conversations instead of just being like asking around people at MIT or like getting those connections, but it just like none of those people were the right fit. Then we were raising money on a safe, and we were planning to mostly just do angels, and we had met some amazing angels that like were such value add for us, who could really help us build the business. And then we met Brand Project, who ended up becoming our pre-seed lead. But we're not really planning on having a pre-seed lead, and it was like pretty close to the end of like we were trying to wrap up our raise. But I think that when we thought about what do we bring to the table as founders and like what do we need help with, if we're being honest, like our founding team's all product people. We don't really know a lot about subscription businesses, which is what we have. And like phase one of our business is like build the subscription D2C so that we can have this really amazing predictive data model. So we needed to like really nail the D2C subscription component, and leverage a lot of best practices there. And that's what Brand Project really brings to the table, is that they're like experts in subscription business models. And they've done it across all different industries. And we knew that we had on our team the science perspective. Renella, my co-founder, is a dermatologist, also very connected to beauty, and we had other like beauty angels. So it was the right team, and ultimately, kind of, we raised a little bit more money than we wanted to, but thought that it would be helpful in helping us grow to have the largest business possible. And I will say that was definitely the right choice, because they've been so instrumental in helping us like get to this stage, and even like thinking about raising our like next stage of fundraising and how they've helped their other companies through like Series A. And we've learned so much from them, even just the best practices of how their other companies are setting up their e-com websites and things like that. There's so many like shared lessons there, that was like a big decision for us, but a really important one.
And Do you have any takeaways from specific meetings that you did where, if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit, but anything like early on in the process, you went into it and you hadn't thought about something, or you kept getting a question, you were like, oh, like this is a question that I really need to think about how to frame, anything like that?
Oh, yeah, there are some learnings that like seem so obvious in retrospect, but like VC is like 95% guys. And we have a product that's primarily geared towards women with skin issues. And so what we didn't realize before was like how much time we actually had to spend explaining the problem and the addressable market, which is like a $12 billion market, but just like spell it out like this is the huge size of the market. This is the opportunity. This is like the experience that women are facing. When we first started raising, we like felt that it was pretty obvious, but realizing that the people we were talking to did not experience it in the same way as potentially their like wives or daughters. Pretty frustrating. And on that note too, it continues to come up about like, oh, let me have my wife try this. But one strategy that's worked pretty well for us is to actually build relationships with females in the VC office, even if they're associates and not partners, and do demo. Like demo is the most magical thing for us because no one's ever seen a skin analysis kit that you do that gives instant results that you can do in a meeting in 10 minutes. So we always also work in demo and especially do demos for whoever in the office, if there's someone who might be our target customer. Whereas like some of the like male VC partners aren't always, but there's usually at least like a few other people in the office. So we always like give away free skin analysis kits, do the demo as part of the meeting. And I think it just makes everything so much more clear. But when we first started pitching, we had a lot of assumptions that people like understood the problem because we were like living and breathing the problem ourselves. We're like, don't
Yeah.
you wash your
How do
face
you not
too?
get this?
Like
Yeah.
everyone has skin, everyone. But I think it's the acute part of the problem about how frustrating and emotional it feels to like not understand like why you keep waking up with breakouts when you think that you're doing everything right. Like unless you've lived that problem, you don't understand like the emotion of that problem.
Totally. So if you were to kind of manifest what you think the future will look like for Atolla, 5 to 7 years from now, what's that look like, and kind of where are you positioned in the market?
To me, I consider us again to be like a data science company that makes skincare products as opposed to just a beauty company. And with that positioning, I imagine us as being a platform where people can track and manage their skin health. Maybe use Atolla products. That's not like even the primary thing. It's basically no matter what someone's situation is, we can help them become smarter about their skin and solve their skin issues. And I imagine us having different entry points into the brand. Like maybe there is like a kiosk at Sephora where you do a quick skin analysis kit. And based on the data we have about other products, we can also help you choose a product we don't even make. Or we can make you a custom product. There's also a way that we can continue to do like data driven services with facials. But I think of us again, like really as like a skin health platform. And I think the other thing that would be cool too is to think about skin health holistically. Because if you're thinking about what causes like a breakout, for example, it's not usually like what you're putting on your skin. It's usually related to like your diet or hormones or other things that are going on. So by the time that you're treating an issue with a skincare product, you already have it. So if you're thinking about preventing skin issues, ideally you're like tracking how these other factors like hormones or food and everything else is affecting your skin so you can identify and like help people prevent that. So I would really love Atolla to become a brand that's also looking at skin holistically, like what people are eating, like supplements, maybe even connected to like other health and fitness apps that they're using to really see the trends and data there. So we're not only like treating the issue with a product, we're helping people like prevent and like maintain their skin.
That's awesome. I love the kind of data first. It's refreshing the way you frame it, because I feel like a lot of companies, try to go product first, but I think it's smart to go like, let's be the data player, let's own all the data, and then there's so many offshoots off that.
Yeah, well, the data tells you what to build. That's the whole thing. It's like the data tells us what our customers want, and especially because our whole brand is built on feedback. So we
Yeah, you need the
literally
data.
like even in thinking about like what would we make after moisturizer and cleanser? Well, let's let our customers tell us what they want and like let's look at the data to see what they actually need and what are the needs of these like different people and decide instead of saying, okay, we're gonna make like these six, like let's let the data tell us what to do and make data driven decisions. It's so different usually skincare is like, what's the trendy thing right now? Oh, CBD. Let's make a CBD moisturizer. It's like the opposite of what we do. We're like, well, will CBD work for anyone? Let's find out. And would we make it for everyone or only available for this group of people? That's how we ask questions.
I love that though. So shifting to a couple of other topics. So one that I love to talk about is hiring. I think hiring is the most important thing. I think when you build a team of just like all-stars, things just work out for you a little bit better. It's the cohesion's better, the output's better. So talk about what's your most underrated or timely hire? Someone who came in, they either kind of excelled in an area that you didn't expect them to have competency, or filled a need you really needed and just like killed it.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think I've always been pleasantly surprised by any time we've hired interns because I haven't expected them to kind of go above and beyond like they have. And I think especially our group of interns we had last summer when we were getting ready to launch, they were just so amazing. I mean, like they were planning and executing projects completely on their own, thinking like outside the box and really cared about the brand and launching the brand as if it was their own and they had been there from day one. And that was a really cool experience to see. I think speaking of timely hires, one that's happened recently to us is copywriting. Before we were imagining copywriting, oh, it's like a part-time position and we wouldn't even like really need it that much. Turns out pretty much every single thing that we're doing now involves copywriting. And for us, copywriting is so key because we can't I'm talking to you about all the data, but talking to customers like that, they'd be like, "Oh my god, this is like sounds way more complicated."
Right.
So it's actually a really hard exercise to simplify all of our messaging. And investing in the copywriting for like simplifying our messaging on our website, our ads, our emails, and being really specific there has had great results. And so originally we got connected to someone who is friends with the one of the designers on our team, and realized once she started working with us, we had so many projects that involved like messaging and copywriting.
Yeah. I think being a good writer is one of the most underrated things, really in any discipline. Like you can have a technical skill, but being a great writer, a great communicator is so underrated.
Yeah. So again, to kind of give you like some insight into the evolution of our brand, me and my co-founders coming from MIT in science, originally our taglines were like skincare customized through an at-home skin analysis test. No one cares. The only thing that people care about when they first learn about your brand is like, will it help solve my skin issue? So everything we talk about, the kit, the science is like that's all secondary messaging. The primary messaging is like this custom serum will help you solve your skin issue. And then it's like so funny that of course we didn't realize that because we're so wrapped up in the day to day of all the science and the data that we're doing that when we try to write copy about what we're doing, people are like, yeah, that sounds complicated.
Yeah. That's just like 23 and Me, right? People only want to know their heritage and like the breakdown. They don't really care like how the test works. Like they'll follow your instructions and that's super important, but like really they just want the result.
Yeah, the result. Yeah, you have to talk about the result first
Yeah.
before you start talking about how it works. And like I said, you can't even give them all the nitty-gritty details at one time or else you'll make it sound more complicated than it is.
Yeah, totally. So I've got two like yin and yang questions. So one is frustrating moment. So can you recall a story or experience through your entire kind of startup journey that was super frustrating or like difficult as a founder, and what was that and kind of how did you get through it?
Yeah, we had like a lot of frustrating moments around our launch. One was the realization that after spending like years building our technology and all these complicated models and like figuring out like custom serum manufacturing and like all the crazy complicated things that we were doing, that the thing that was possibly going to hold up our launch was getting droppers for our bottles. I was like, "What? Are you kidding me? It's like the stupidest thing." But it's because the droppers were like the only part of our packaging that couldn't be made in the US, had to be made in like Italy, and they could only make like 20,000 of them and then like send them a certain way. And so the timeline that I was told about how long it would take to make and get the droppers was only the time to make them, not to get them from Europe like on a
Oh
boat.
man.
So it was like an extra like 2 months of like what they told me. And I was like, "Oh my god, like what?" we sorted it out. We had to delay our launch by like a few weeks. It wasn't 2 months, and we had to get like a smaller amount of a different draw and like all this stuff. But it was so frustrating that like after building all of the hard stuff, that it was like something so small but still
So
important that
trivial.
yeah. But it I definitely learned what questions I like wish I had asked about manufacturing. And then another thing about like always needing to have like multiple backup plans, because that's all we were doing. We're like, well, we could do this or we could do this, and what would get this, and we could do this, but at the expense of this. And so that's always the way you're kind of like operating, is like all of the different scenarios and backup plans. A second one was our website broke after we launched. So if you think about it, the people are buying a custom product. The way that people purchased when we first launched was they bought the kit, but then they still had to buy the serum and sign up for the subscription when they did the kit. In designing a custom product, it's like a choose your own adventure, that there are like so many different iterations that you have to consider in the algorithm to like generate the serum. The way that our website was built was like, of those like thousands of data points, if one went wrong, the serum wouldn't generate and someone couldn't check out. And so we had a period a couple months after we launched where people were like, "Hey, I'm trying to give your website money," which like I can't right now. And I was like, "Oh my god, this is my worst nightmare as a founder. Like someone's trying to give us money and they can't check out."
Yeah.
And we had to pause our marketing spend and rebuild like what the agency had built for us, in a way that was modular, so that then when we like turned back on our spend and started like doing more advertising, we knew that people weren't going to go through the whole thing and then not even be able to like check out. So we just rebuilt the entire foundation of like the way that that works, because we had to build our own store too. Like the hardest thing about building our company is that you can't really use anything. Everything is custom. It's like not
There's
just a
no there's no
product. Like
Shopify.
there's no
There's no
Shopify that
Shopify.
works.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's so frustrating. Especially the website breaking is so frustrating. Especially because how long did it take for you to realize like what the problem was, right? Because that was probably a couple weeks to figure that out or get a new agency.
Yeah, at least, because this is the other thing that we've had to figure out how to do is, how do you test something that has so many iterations? Like
Yeah, you could
if
never
if
test
me
every
as a
combination.
human, yeah, if me as a human was trying to go through and change all the iterations, I wouldn't be able to do it. So we've had to figure out, in our QA process, how to do testing and how to do swarm testing of just like thousands and thousands of people doing it and trying to break it and write specific code that like tests all the different variations. Cause like, yeah, one human, it's not like checking a normal website, like one human can't do it. So that was another hard lesson and a frustrating one.
So the flip side would be like validating moment. So what can you think of a story or a moment that stands out where you were like so just happy and validated as a founder?
Yeah, I mean, I think the moments that stand out the most to me are customer interactions. I love seeing people's progress photos, like especially in a short period of time, or if it's an issue that they've really struggled with. And some of the like, to be honest, like emotional emails that we get, that people talk about their skin issues and like how hard it was for them to like not wear makeup or like leave their house. And so anytime that we do a pop-up and that I can talk to people in person is like why I love my job, because skin is so emotional. To like hear firsthand about how our product has helped solve someone's issue like that, is really amazing and also validating, because I also see myself in those people of like struggling to try to figure out like, why was I getting an allergic reaction to this, or why couldn't I use this? And like I know what that emotion feels like, and so it's even that much more meaningful to know what it feels like to help someone solve a problem.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome. Talk about self-doubt a little bit. Almost every entrepreneur I've talked to experiences self-doubt throughout, but especially at the beginning, right? The imposter syndrome, trying to figure out like, am I on the right path? I don't know if people want this. Did you experience that? And what was it like getting over it?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I think, to be honest, being a student founder like helped a little bit, because I already had gone through imposter syndrome feeling once, being in grad school at MIT and being like, I'm around all these geniuses. What am I doing here? Like, why'd they let me
Yeah.
in? Like, should I be here? Should I be in this class? Like, I went through that one time already. And so when I was building this company, I think it was also hard, and a hard lesson. Like, especially fundraising, you get a lot of no's. You get a lot of people who don't understand the problem or don't understand your business. But I think the thing that's helped me around self-doubt is to really focus on the people that we're helping and, to be honest, think about the worst case scenario. So if I think about the worst case scenario for my company as I was building it throughout is like, I fail. Okay. Well, I can still get a great job. Like, I have a great degree. I had like an awesome job before grad school. I also have all this information about people's skin that can really help people. So if the worst case is that my business fails and I still have a lot of information that could help people and be useful about like people's skin and like skin research, that's actually pretty good. It's, like, not so bad. So, like, sometimes I think about things like that, and it makes me less scared and, like, more motivated to keep going because the worst case scenario actually isn't even that bad and still ends up with having things that are really helpful to people and, like, understanding skin health and trying to move the industry forward. And so that's usually, like, the exercise that I go to kind of de-risk it for myself or, like, build more confidence and, like, why is what I'm doing important?
And similar to that, around like founder mentality. So, what characteristics do you think are required to make a great founder? There seems to be some themes across most people's answers to this. I'm curious what you think.
To be honest, what keeps me going on really hard days is my personal connection to the problem and, like, being so motivated by that. Um, I think having resilience, like, essentially, like, everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and every day it's all about problem solving, so you have to kind of keep going and kind of continue on even with the setbacks that will happen, like, literally every single day. You could have, like, the best day and the worst day ever in the same day, and that's, like, entrepreneurship. I think it's really important to have a diverse founding team. To be honest, I really appreciate the fact that my co-founders have a different perspective than me, and I think one of the greatest things you can have among a founding team outside of that diverse perspective is to be able to have a healthy dialogue around disagreement. Because any time that I have a disagreement with my co-founders around like product or something else and we talk it out in our different perspectives, we always come up with a better solution. And you have to have that like honesty with each other too to be able to build something that's like completely innovative and unique, and be able to look at it like critically from all angles yourself. I think another thing that's really important as a founder is transparency, especially with your team. For us, we're pretty transparent about our progress and our goals, and sharing high level goals is really motivating to our team. Like when they know like what's our revenue or our customer numbers we're trying to hit, it gives everyone like a reason to work towards the same thing. And so I err as a founder on being more like transparent about our goals and what we're trying to accomplish and find that it's like really motivating for the rest of the team and also like builds trust.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So I like to link up on our website the different books, newsletters, podcasts, social media profiles that different founders follow to get either inspiration or to learn more about entrepreneurship and business. So do you have any recommendations on that front?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I've read 2 books lately, which I've really liked. One was called something. I think it was called like "The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck" or something like that, and it's about caring less or like caring in the right way about the right things. And I really enjoyed that because I'm someone who cares a lot about a lot of things, and sometimes it feels like very emotionally exhaustive. Like you got to like choose what your priorities are and where you're going to put all your like mental energy. So I found that book to be very helpful. I also read an interesting book called New Power, which is really interesting for companies like ours, which are based on communities and like groups of people, and how power is kind of moving from like doctors or like one like figurehead people to being more like crowdsourced and being more collaborative, and the power in that and how to leverage that in like social media. My favorite podcast, I love How I Built This, as I was mentioning to you. I also love Freakonomics. That's another favorite podcast of mine. Planet Money, I find to be like very informative. And then other things that I like to make time for is I have some like entrepreneur mentors who I like to have regular check-ins with, because one thing about entrepreneurship is that it's really lonely. It, like, sounds even though you have a team, especially for founders, you have a very unique experience that oftentimes you can't share all the details with your team. And so I found it's been really helpful to like talk to other, especially like female founders about some of my experiences.
That was actually a question I was gonna ask around mentorship. Like any specific kind of lessons learned or topics you kind of consistently talk about that you'd share?
My favorite thing that I've learned from one of my mentors that I think about this tip and talk about it at least once a week, I feel like, but is about team structure and organization, that like everyone in your company should be working on a different time frame ideally. Like when you first start and you're starting a company like me and my co-founders and we're like building everything and our initial apps and stuff ourselves, you're in the day to day, hour by hour, like you're literally building every single thing yourself. As you hire people, I think especially early on for us, we were hiring more junior level people, which are amazing. They'll learn anything, they like work so hard, they like hustle and execute. But you are also like as a founder helping manage what they're doing and setting their priorities for the day to day. And so you're always zooming in and zooming out. And then as you have to hire, there needs to be people like above them, they're looking like weekly, people above them who are looking like at monthly goals. And then ultimately, as a founder, you should be thinking about like quarterly, yearly, when's your next raise going to be? When are your next products? And so for me, I'm like, oh, wow. In our team structure right now, me and my co founders are still spending a lot of time in the day to day. And it's not like often the most efficient way to like organize or manage.
Yeah. So that's an interesting point. So people who like to be in the day to day, I bet, and our founders, I bet that's difficult to try to, relinquish control and zoom back out. So I'm interested to hear how that goes as you guys keep growing.
It's really hard for me as a designer because I did like a lot of our initial branding and even some of our website design. And I'm like very intimately involved with that. And so to like step back from that and also to communicate my vision for the brand so that everyone can like understand like what's the brand vision and everything else has been really hard because I love doing that. Like I want to keep designing like website pages like but I can't do that, and so that's been like a hard transition.
Yeah, how do you ensure that you can keep your fingerprints on, like, you're the founder, right? So obviously inherently your ideas trickle down, but like, to your point, how do you ensure that your thoughts around design and some of those details get captured?
I think it's a good investment of time early on to make things like brand books and figure out what you stand for. Also, what you don't stand for, because it's easier to talk about what you don't stand for and then what you stand for in comparison. Create those brand guidelines, which includes like visual. Obviously, that's what we did first because that's more of my background. But it also includes copy and the words that you use. For us, as we would talk about, words are so important in what we're communicating. Like what is the actual, is it a skin health kit? Is it a skin analysis test? Is it test strip? Like all of the words and like being consistent so that everyone's like talking about the same thing. Figuring out your brand voice. So like there's like one deck I made where I was like, our brand voice is like Bill Nye the Science Guy, but female and like more casual.
Jill
But
and
just
I.
yeah, love that. Or having like a pyramid again, brand hierarchy, like what are all the different like messages and at like what point in the funnel and things like that. That's a great investment of time. I think actually when we were fundraising, a lot of investors made that comment when we were fundraising even before we launched. It's like, wow, you guys have like so much info on your brand. And I was like, that's because we really care about it and we spent so much time on it. But it was a good investment of time because now when we're hiring people, we're thinking about like, oh, do we need to update these brand guidelines or what can we add to it? But everyone has a starting point. And I think the other thing that's important too is figuring out the right process for approval. Like, when should you be involved? I think the best place to be involved is like really early on in setting the goals and the strategy. Let people execute and then just like give the approvals. It's the easiest way.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, so final two questions. So the first one, if you had to write a startup manifesto with 5 of the most important key lessons or pitfalls to avoid when starting out, what would they be?
So the first one, I touched on this a bit, but choosing your co-founders is key. Those people are going to be like your family. Like I literally spend more time with my co-founder than I spend with my boyfriend who I've been dating for a really long time and I live with. Like be like those your co-founders, you're going to talk to them all day, all night, have to call them at 2 a.m. for sometimes like you got to pick really carefully. And so not only about, obviously good people skills, like are they a good person I want to spend a lot of time with, but I think it's important to have diverse founders. We were in a situation where we had another early co-founder who ended up leaving, and she and I had a lot of overlapping skills, which made it really hard in the early days to think about responsibility and things like that. And also, realizing that we didn't have the same like vision or goals ultimately. And when you realize that, it's really hard and it's really emotional to have a founder leave. So I think, people get really excited about the idea. I know I was, and having co-founders, but thinking of the long term and like who are the right people to have around you, and like are you guys all going to focus on different but complementary things, and like how do you work together? Like nothing could be more important early on than those things. Another thing that we learned, especially for us building a new product, is that what works for other brands doesn't always work for us. So, as I mentioned, like a great benefit to having an investor like Brand Project is learning what works from other brands. And I can't tell you how many times we've tried something that's worked well for another subscription brand and it didn't work well for us. And so, what we realized was like when you're building a new product, it doesn't even make sense to use what other people who are building a different type of product use. So you have to instead test stuff and listen to your customers and follow your gut on that, because it doesn't actually save you that much time to copy other people's stuff, and make it applicable to your brand. Third, which we talked about a little bit, was like the importance of testing. So if I think critically about why did we have to rebuild part of our website, it's because of our launch timeline. When we were launching, we were already a bit delayed more than we wanted. We wanted to launch right away. We had these goals we were trying to hit, and we rushed testing a bit. We did not like leave the appropriate amount of time for testing. Another is team culture, where everyone has a seat at the table. Again, kind of even thinking about interns and some of the people we've worked with. We're inventing a new product. Nobody has done this before, including us. What's to say our idea is like more valuable than anyone else's when it comes to like executing in a certain way. And inviting everyone to meetings in a collaborative way has helped us come up with some really creative solutions. And so I'm really glad that our team culture, obviously my co-founders and I set the strategy, but we have a lot of brainstorming and creative sessions with the whole team, and talk about problems we're trying to solve. And so it's important to include everyone, even if they're like an intern. And then finally, I think kind of the biggest lesson or thing I can stress is that as an entrepreneur, you have to become like an improv master and kind of expect things to go wrong and always have backup plans. You almost don't even have enough time to like be upset about stuff. You have to ask like, all right, what am I going to do? Or like, how are we going to fix it? There's always a solution. And the quicker you can go to thinking about the solution and getting there and thinking about all your backup plans, the better you'll be, because it's just inevitable that will happen. So you always have to be thinking creatively about how, even if it's not ideal, like what can you do?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great list. And then the last question is a nomination. So this is a process we've been doing. It's been working really great to help kind of get new guests on the show. So it's your turn to nominate another founder that is a friend, colleague, or mentor of yours that you'd like to see on the show.
I'm going to nominate my friend Steph, who is the founder of a company called Cadence. They actually create little reusable like modules that you can refill your beauty products. So it's like a super eco-friendly alternative to those like plastic travel bottles that you get at like Target and CVS. And they just recently launched, and they've also been killing it at social media. So I honestly want to listen to her.
Yeah, I'd love to get her on. Perfect. So before we wrap, I just want to acknowledge you for a second. I think the data-driven approach is what stuck out to me when I kind of listened through all your answers, and how personalization and data is kind of not only at the core of what you guys do, but really the primary driver for growth and scale. And I think that's really, really interesting to me. And so I'm pumped to kind of stay connected and see how Atolla grows, and looking forward to keeping up with the journey.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me and asking me all these questions. I mean, I think it's really fun to reflect on all the things that have happened in such a short period of time, which I think is like probably classic for any entrepreneur. It like feels like a million years, but it's only been like 7 months.
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of where if people listen to this and they want to contact you or follow you on social or, buy products for Atolla, do you want to plug the websites and social handles?
Yeah, our website is atolla.co, atolla.co. And our Instagram is Atolla Skin Lab. Same on TikTok, since we were talking about TikTok.
Awesome. Meg Maupin, founder of Atolla, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening to that episode with Meg Maupin of Atolla. Remember, if you liked what you heard and want to support the show, there's a couple quick things you could do that would really help us out. 1, subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. If you go on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a 5-star rating and a couple sentence positive review on why the show inspired you. These ratings and reviews are super important, and they signal to Apple that they should put the show in front of other people that might like it. 2, follow us on social, mainly Instagram and Twitter, at Founder Podcast. Each week we put out teasers, audio clips, and important quotes from the episode. And lastly, we're pumped to announce that our website for the show is now live. Go to www.thefounderpod.com as a mission control for the show. We have a page on there called Special Offers where we link up discount codes from our founders' companies, as well as all the books and resources that have been recommended across our episodes. I hope you enjoyed that episode and are looking forward to the next one. Until then, I'm Kallaway, and this is The Founder.